In today's video, we have some trade talk around Calgary and Vancouver. With the Flames, it was a lot worse than we ever knew or expected in regards to players wanting out because of coach Daryl Sutter. A lot of that has changed, and we'll discuss that situation. Plus, we have several signings. We have a fine from last night's playoff action. We have more award finalists announced and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover here today. First, let's quickly recap last night's playoff action. We saw 2 games take place. Both were game number 2s, and round number 2, we saw the Florida Panthers take a 2-0 series lead over the Toronto Maple Leafs, winning both games in Toronto's arena with a 3-2 score. Of course, game 1 was 4-2. This one was 3-2. It was closer. The Leafs had a really good start to the game. They had a hot start, 2 quick goals within the first 5.5-6 minutes, 2-0 lead. Then they get some power plays. Things were looking good. And then slowly the tides turn. The Panthers later get on the board. And then slowly kind of took over on the scoreboard. But the Maple Leafs didn't really play that bad of a game, to be completely honest. Sergei Bobrovsky was outstanding. Samsonov was pretty good himself. But obviously, I think it's fair to say that every time the Maple Leafs, or most of the time, the Maple Leafs made a mistake or a turnover, the Panthers made them pay and went right in the net. They certainly had some miscues. They certainly were their own worst enemies in that regard last night. And, when it mattered most to get, the goals, get everything tied up or take a lead, Bobrovsky absolutely shut them down. So, at the end of the day, the Leafs didn't play that badly. I think it's a game that you could argue that the Maple Leafs probably deserved to win by a fair margin. They just couldn't get the job done. I mean, that happens sometimes. And they've certainly been on the other side of it a number of times, especially in round 1. At least a few of those games against Tampa, you could argue that they were not the better team. They did not deserve a win, but they found a way, and they get it done late with a comeback victory or something of that nature, which they did do a few times. So certainly a case of things kind of evening out in that respect. We had some rough stuff in last night's action as well. I know a lot of Maple Leaf fans were quite upset with Sam Bennett for multiple occasions. Actually, he actually had a situation where he cross-checked Michael Bunting in front of the Florida net. He cross-checked him once up high and then again down low. He was fined $5,000 by NHL player safety for the cross-checks, but there was also a play involving youngster Matthew Knies where they got tangled up behind the net. It looked like Bennett kind of made sure he ran him hard into the boards. And then looked like it was almost like a wrestling move to take him down to the ice. I've seen people saying that he slammed his head on the ice and all that. That I could not see. I mean, yes, he did take him down to the ice. In my opinion, it doesn't look like Knies' head actually hits the ice. It doesn't matter if it does or not, though. It's still a dirty play by Bennett. He still should have been penalized for sure. I'm not sure it's a suspendable play, but it certainly would have been justified for some kind of a penalty or fine, but that is completely untouched and uncalled. So certainly, as I mentioned before, in my opinion, the NHL playoffs has been incredibly inconsistent when it comes to the referees and the officials and the calls they've made, and we've seen some pretty inconsistent calls on how things have been handled with NHL player safety. So it's really difficult to know what's going to happen sometimes when things happen and what the outcome is going to be. Almost impossible to predict, but no matter how you shake it, Knies is out now. He unfortunately did suffer a concussion, so he's been ruled out for the next 2 games. Sounds like he won't travel and will miss games 3 and 4 down in Florida. After that, it's possible he can return, but Sheldon Keefe said it is possible that he's out and misses the rest of the series. So certainly, a very unfortunate outcome there. The youngster was fitting in, playing well, and kind of earning himself a good spot and contributing to the Leafs' success. So, yes, an unfortunate outcome for sure. The Dallas Stars did even up their series last night against the Seattle Kraken, a 4-2 victory. Jake Ottinger was much better. We had goals from Dadonov, Johnston, as well as Pavelski again. They all scored in the second period to take a 3-1 lead after the 2 periods of play. And, of course, Seattle and Dallas both added a later goal to make it a 4-2 score. So, overall, that series has shifted back to being tied. And now that series will go for games 3 and 4 at Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. Now, we do have a variety of NHL signings today. There's one of these is an NHL player getting an extension. A lot of these others are prospects of different players coming from different parts of the world. So first off, we got the Ottawa Senators signed a interesting-looking European free agent, Jiří Smolka, who is a Czech Republic player. Been playing in the Swedish Hockey League though, but it looks like he's had a really decent production. Looks like he's not the greatest skater, but a good with the puck, a good strong forward. Pierre Dorian described him as an option for the bottom six, so certainly not somebody they're expecting to come over and absolutely tear him up offensively. He may not even be guaranteed, like he's not guaranteed an NHL roster spot. He could end up being a player that goes down to Belleville in the American Hockey League as well. He should be already, used to playing on the different ice surface in North America because he did play his junior hockey for a couple of years in the Western Hockey League. So at least the that adjustment should be a pretty easy transition for him. But he's a 26-year-old. He gets a 1-year ELC, so kind of a low risk, potentially high reward. I don't think the reward should be too high. To me, he's either going to be a bottom six player who probably isn't going to be a regular. I mean, he could be, but I'm going to say that the odds are he's going to be, a co-op option or just a depth piece. But we'll see how things work out. Obviously, some of these European players that are a bit older, it's harder to be as familiar with them. When he has represented his country recently internationally a few times and had some good success. So we'll see how things work out. Like I said, a 1-year contract on a European free agent, pretty low risk that way. If it works out, great. If not, well, you tried, and no harm for trying in that regard. The Boston Bruins have signed a prospect today. Matthew Poitras gets his 3-year entry-level contract. He had a good season this year in the OHL for the Guelph Storm. He was a second-round pick last year in the 2022 NHL draft. He was second in the OHL this past year in assists with 79. So certainly a pretty good offensive talent there that the Bruins are quite happy to get under contract. We also found out another Pittsburgh Penguin prospect is leaving the organization and heading back to Europe. Of course, we found out about Philip Hollander just in the past couple of days. And now goalie prospect Philip Lindberg is doing the same thing. He's heading back to Europe, and he's signed a 2-year deal to play in Finland. So the Penguins have not had good success and good luck with a lot of their European prospects recently. So that's certainly a trend that they'd probably like to correct and they'd like to see have a better outcome. The San Jose Sharks have signed an interesting prospect as well. 6'6", 209 pounds, 22-year-old Finnish defenseman Valtteri Puoli. He gets a 2-year entry-level contract. Certainly got the size and strength of NHL quality defenseman. There's no doubt about that. Just a matter of how he's going to fit in and where exactly he'll start, whether it be the NHL or AHL. But certainly a real decent-looking prospect there for sure. Lots of size, lots to be excited about that way. The Tampa Bay Lightning today also re-signed Mikey Eyssimont. He gets a 2-year contract extension at $800,000 AAV per season. So obviously he played well in the playoffs against the Maple Leafs when he was in the lineup. Unfortunately, did miss a few games due to injury, but a good bottom six option with some good speed there. Gets a 2-year deal at $800,000. So nice to see him get extended. We do have some more updates as well on some award winners. So the finalists, we found out that the Norris Trophy nominees are Erik Karlsson, Adam Fox, and Cale Makar. To be honest, I think this trophy 100% goes to Erik Karlsson. I mean, he had a 100-point season, which is a rare feat by a defenseman in this league. So I certainly hope he is given the trophy. He is well-deserved. Now, I know there's some people out there that argue that it should be for best all-around defenseman, and maybe that's the case, but traditionally, it is one of the top offensive defensemen that get this award. Besides that, like I said, you get Adam Fox and Cale Makar. Cale Makar did miss over 20 games. I think it was 22 games due to injury. His point totals on a per-game basis are really, really good, and certainly would have rivaled being, besides Karlsson, number 2 in a lot of categories. But I know in the past, traditionally, you see a lot of other players when it comes to awards sometimes get snubbed because of missing too much time. I'm really surprised here that we didn't see a guy like Josh Morrissey of Winnipeg or even Quinn Hughes of Vancouver get a little bit more love, especially in the case of Morrissey, that are an outstanding career season. Unfortunate, but I'm sure when the results come out, he's probably going to be 4th or 5th on the ballot, but I think he deserved better fate here But not that Makar isn't arguably the best or one of the top 1 or 2 defensemen in the NHL. He definitely is, but based on this season of missing time, and of course Karlsson being in that conversation, I don't know that it's really right to leave out some of these other guys. This feels bad, but at the same time, you can't have everybody be a finalist either. And we also just got word on the Jack Adams finalists, which is voted out by the broadcasters. Your top 3 finalists for Coach of the Year include Boston Bruins coach Jim Montgomery, New Jersey Devils coach Lindy Ruff, and Seattle Kraken head coach Dave Haxtell. So, of course, Montgomery led the Bruins to a historical season. Haxtell and Ruff seen significant gains from their teams from last year. Of course, both of them with their teams for a little while. Of course, it was only the second year for Haxtell and the Kraken to even exist, and they made massive strides from year 1 to year 2. And Lindy Ruff's team in New Jersey was like almost a ridiculous gain, 40-point gain or something like that, from 1 year to the next. So they're all well-deserving in their own right for sure. Be curious to see who actually ends up victorious and taking home the hardware. And when it comes to some trade talk, one name to keep an eye out for is actually still JT Miller. According to Rick Dollywall of Vancouver Media, of course, he has the Donnie and Daly show, very well connected with the Canucks organization. I know in his recent show here, he did talk about the fact that he's still convinced, based on his sources are telling him, that the Vancouver Canucks are actively interested in considering trading Miller still before the no-trade clause kicks in on July the 1st for the new contract that they came in agreement with him in the past. So obviously that deal, even though it was signed, we've heard a lot of speculation that he could still possibly be traded. Then at one point it was kind of looked upon as being less likely, so that he did well under Rick Tocchet. Rick Tocchet saw a lot of good positive changes, and as much as we're still bound to see a few deals, mainly due to cap constraints and to kind of change up the flexibility and to mix it a little bit to make this team better, I think a lot of people expect Miller to be a part of things as that new contract gets ready to kick in. But Dollywall is not 100% convinced. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, of course. If they don't find the right trade, then it's very likely that he stays put. But he is making it known that it's still something that the Canucks are actively interested in and could still pull off here ahead of time if the right trade does come along. Now, as I mentioned, I do want to talk about the Calgary Flames, just how bad things were. Now that Daryl Sutter has been fired, and it's been a few days, we're getting a lot more reports coming out now between Elliot Friedman talking on one of his recent podcasts, and the Frank Saravalli talking about it as well, about some of his radio hits, especially the Calgary media, how bad things really were. Now, we knew that some Flames players had talked about maybe wanting out. They seemed non-committal at the end of season, and we knew that there was likely some, friction and some fireworks going on behind the scenes in the Flames organization. But based on recent comment from Frank Saravalli, makes it sound like now that Daryl Sutter is actually fired, that a lot of players have rescinded their trade requests. So now, in this case, though, it doesn't mean that all players are not going to be considered for trade. You got to remember, this Calgary Flames team underachieved. They missed the playoffs. Doesn't matter if the coach is still there or not. It's on the players, obviously, to be responsible for getting the work and the job done. Yes, the coaching staff need to lead them, which is still part of their job. And obviously, that's a new group of people that's being put in place here by obviously the new GM. Once their job is in place, it's going to be a little bit of a slower process here right now. But at the end of the day, the Calgary Flames are in a spot where they need change. Like, they underperformed. They didn't get the job done. Do they have the right mix? It's probably not the case. But at the same time, they had a bunch of players that wanted out. It was going to make things a lot more complicated for the Flames. So you had speculation was that a lot of players that were nearing the end of their contracts, like players such as Elias Lindholm, you're looking at a guy like Michael Backlund, possibly Chris Tanev, possibly a guy like Noah Hanifin as well. There's some other players too, but they're the main players on expiring deals that you would expect to maybe be some of the top players who are more likely to be influential around the team, and that might be requesting a trade. Now, of course, they seemed like Backlund and Lindholm themselves extremely non-committal at end of season media availability, which got a lot of people talking. But now they're saying that Sutter is gone, they're willing to stay. But I'm issuing some caution here that just because the Flames are, getting word from these players that they're very interested in staying now, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to get their wish. Just like when people make trade requests to leave, it doesn't mean everybody is going to get their wish. It's just quite that simple. You have to do business and find the right deal here. And at the end of the day, that might be complicated to do. So when it comes to the Calgary Flames, certainly, like I said, changes that need to occur, just a matter of which ones are the ones that happen. Could it still be guys like Elias Lindholm or Michael Backlund or Noah Hannafin that end up getting traded? It's a real possibility. There's players that are down to 1 year. There's some players that are expiring contracts. And then there's a bunch of these other players that we just talked about as well that they're going to be offered extensions likely this year. If they are seen as being part of the team's future, will they decide to stay or will they really investigate things further? It's hard to say how things are going to go. But as we know, when you're looking for stabilization and success, you want to have your team kind of connecting here at all the right cylinders. And obviously when it comes to the Calgary Flames, they were not getting that last year. Head coach Daryl Sutter was creating an untenable environment, making a lot of people unhappy and uncomfortable, and certainly not doing their best. That much we can say with absolute certainty. So, could these players all end up staying, and maybe then the Calgary Flames don't make a lot of trades? It's possible, but like I said, I wouldn't have expected with a trade request or not to go into the offseason without at least one or two of the players that we've talked about here, between the guys that are on expiring deals, like your Backlund, like your Lindholm, your Hannafin, your Chris Tanev, your players like that, or some players that do have a little bit of term as well. At the end of the day, Daryl Sutter created a unique environment that was not friendly to everybody, so everybody had their own unique reaction. So I'll be curious to see how things go and who ends up staying. But like I said, changes need to happen here because clearly this team underperformed, and I would imagine once we have a new GM and coach in place, they're going to be looking at a lot of the same players anyway. So just because they've rescinded their trade requests doesn't mean we're not going to see big deals go on in Calgary. But to have that many players tell your GM at the time and your president that I will not play here if that guy is still involved, and to be that blunt, that upfront, and have that many people do it is certainly quite telling and quite condemning in my opinion. So let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.